Hey, welcome back to Historic Investments. We just today got a really interesting import. And for those of you who've watched this channel before, I think you're probably thinking, great, it got another box full of early design semi-automatic handguns. But you would be wrong. In this case, we got a fantastic shotgun. It's an Italian shotgun. No, it's not a Beretta. No, it's not a Pedersoli. No, it's not a Perazzi. It's a Rizzini. But it really is a fantastic gun. So let's unbox it, import market, and then look at some of the details that make this such a terrific firearm. First, just as a quick overview, regardless of whether you're talking about British shotguns or high-end Italian shotguns or even US shotguns, the best shotguns almost always came in a hard case. Now, sometimes the case can be canvas and leather. Usually the best ones are fully leather clad, as in this example. In this particular gun, you've got, full side plates. You've got a single non-selective trigger. You've got your double barrels here, and here's the forend. And just as when you examine some of the older handguns and even rifles, you're always looking for matching serial numbers, and that's very important. So you look for the cardinal serial number on the receiver, and there should be at two places, one on the water table. In this case, a serial number is repeated on the tang. We'll kind of look at that later, the extension of the trigger guard. The forend has got the serial number on it, and so does the set of chopper lump barrels. In the case, the case is usually compartmentalized for some cleaning implements. This is for the cleaning rods. This is kind of the long compartment right here. We've got some smaller storage areas for cleaning brushes, maybe some ammo and different supplies. And then traditionally, there's a couple of snap caps, so you can you can practice with your shotgun at your leisure and not worry about damaging the firing pins. So at this point, let's actually take a closer look at some of the markings, which are really phenomenal in this gun. In many cases, the high-end shotguns are not marked quite as obviously as we would customarily expect when just looking at American shotguns. So in this particular gun, you can get a lot of information, not so much on the outside of the gun, but after looking at the disassembled barrel flats. For example, and we'll zoom up a little closer, you can see that here's the factory name has been repeated. Here is the matching serial number of the gun. CAM70 is a reference to the chamber depth. Okay, 70 millimeters. That means this shotgun has got 2 3/4 inch chambers. These are some of the proofing signatures. And then there's a square here with a couple of letters, AD. And if you kind of look at some of your reference books, that would suggest that this particular shotgun was assembled and proofed in 1978. Okay, then there's some I'm guessing that there are choke markings here. I'm not really familiar what these numbers signify. If you kind of look at a couple of other details here, this is a chopper lump shotgun, and a chopper lump shotgun is kind of a reference to how the barrels were put together. And you can see the barrels were made individually, and they were joined right here in this section. You can see this split line here. And then the screw in this area is for stabilization. And then if you look at this lug, you can see that there's a couple of areas right here for stabilization. So it's basically got a double lugged lockup in terms of how it fits into the chamber. Now, it's kind of interesting that this particular shotgun and other high-end shotguns too are not expressly marked when the gun is put together, modified, full, or improved cylinder. So one of the easy ways, if you've got a question, you've got a pocket full of change, let's take a look right here, is to take a dime, hopefully a dime that's not terribly well used, and put it in the barrel. Now, traditionally, in a shooting situation, you would shoot the right barrel first, so that's going to have the more open choke, and then the left barrel would be second when the bird or whatever game you're hunting is further away. So this would be the equivalent of a full choke. So if your dime does not quite fit into the bore, that's probably a full choke. And if you kind of look, this is how far it gets into the left barrel. Here's the right barrel for your closer shot. Look at that. It just barely gets into the right one. So I could be a little bit off here. Maybe it's improved, modified, or modified, but I'm guessing this is going to be a modified on the right and full on the left. Next, let's take a look at the Forend, which is made of the same highly figured Circassian walnut as the buttstock, which we'll examine a little bit later. But let's look at the small metal components, and you can see the scroll patterns. Now, these are all hand-done scrolls. They're not machine-made, and you can see that the scroll work is just simply extraordinary. And you can see the coin finish. In the background, you can see the coin finish of the receiver. And of course, it's matching here. And let's take a look at the inside. And the inside it's either polished bright or coin finished bright. It's got the matching serial number. It's got the factory name. It's got a very nicely appointed push button release here, whose end is nicely checkered. So now let's take a look at the receiver, and you can see the banknote engraving here is just absolutely spectacular. Basically, all the surfaces are uniformly covered, and as you would expect in a super high-grade gun, all the screws have got very, very thin, super narrow slots. They're all finished so as to be horizontal. They're all parallel. Look at that. That's a small locking screw, and you can see the two screw slots actually form a single uninterrupted line. Within the engraved field, you can see the corporate name. Here it is, Rizzini. We can turn the gun over, and let's see, I don't know if you can cone in a little bit. You can see the model. It's extra. It's not actually the complete model name. The model name would be an R1 extra, but we see the word here, extra, and they certainly have put a lot of extra work into the engraving. You can see the extension here of the trigger guard tang. Here it is, serial number 1626. And again, look at the scroll work. This is absolutely fantastic. And when people have done a great job, and they know they've done a great job, they sign their work. So if you look right here, and I know this is going to be super difficult to see, but you can make out the word Patelli, comma, W, and I don't know what the W is. I assume that's a W in 1978. So the gun was made in 78 and also engraved in 1978. So now let's take a look at the buttstock, and really the contrast in this Circassian Walnut is just phenomenal. It really sets this gun apart from, lesser quality firearms. The other thing that you should look at, and let's cone in just a little bit here and take a look at the wood to metal fit, and you can see right where the side plates side plate here fits against the receiver. There are no gaps, and the level of the wood is just exactly at the same level as the side plate. It's really a phenomenal fitting job, and the same thing can be applied to this extended trigger guard tang that's been inletted into this straight grip buttstock. Just look at that. Again, there are no gaps or no splinters here. It's just perfect throughout the whole length. And as you've already noticed, and I've mentioned, look, of course, that the screw slots are both parallel and along the axis of the tang. Now, one thing that I should point out is, and you should look too when considering whether or not to, acquire this kind of gun or value this kind of gun, is, look at the butt plate or look at the recoil pad. And in this case, if you really look carefully, you can see that here, this black spacer is just a little bit above the plane of the buttstock, and you can see the sanding lines, and this stock has been sanded with super fine grit. It doesn't quite match the sanding lines of the spacer plate. So the sanding lines are in this direction, perpendicular to the axis of the buttstock, and it doesn't fit quite as well. So clearly, this solid red recoil pad and spacer plate have been added at a later date, but given the phenomenal engraving work, given the phenomenal wood here, that really shouldn't impact your decision very much when adding something like this to your collection. Well, hopefully you guys learned a little bit more about some of the high-end Italian shotguns, this one of course being a Rizzini. And I do need to call out the Poulin Auctions and thank them very much for providing this particular example for the presentation. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe. Any questions, please ask. We'll try to answer them. But for right now, I'm signing off. Good luck and good collecting.